the quote-unquote legal manners you were referring to are by which banks are able to benefit from laundering money for criminal enterprises like drug dealers and human traffickers, terrorists, dictators, and such?
Well, they grow, obviously, because the money that's being put into them goes into investments, and they're able to get rich by it. But as far as the legal thing is kind of what we discussed, is that they're very secretive in their paperwork, very guarded in their paperwork as to who are the clients, how much they have, and things we have to go through to get that information. But then you also have the influx that they wire transfer to known banks in the Bahamas that are known for money laundering. So I think the banking industry needs to know that these banks that are suspect, that maybe they should think twice about sending the money there. And they know they're going to make money for the transfer, but it really is, it's just, I don't understand fully the world of the banking mostly, but what I've heard from other agents is that it is a problem. There is a problem with the way they catered in the past to all that money that was influenced by the dope dealers.
All right. Tell us about the Bloomingdale's beating of a made mafia soldier, Petey Chops.
That was a classic day. First of all, Petey Chops was a mobster. His name is Petey Chops Vicini. Now, Petey Chops was a thorn on Greg DePalma, who was the captain of the crew, side because he was not reporting. And when you're in the mob, you have to report to your skipper, to your captain. And you report because you got to give them money, for being on the crew. You always got to kick up money. So he was like really bothered by this. And then one day when I'm with him and another made guy, a soldier who was an acting captain in our crew, Robert Vaccaro was his name. He says, we got information that Petey Chops brings his girlfriend and a lady, 2 women, go shopping at Bloomingdale's, and he drops the women off while he goes upstairs to get something to eat at the restaurant. So everybody's saying, really? What's going on? He goes, come on, we'll go. Let's take a ride. So I'm in the car with Greg DePalma and Robert Vaccaro. So we're driving there on this hint. Sure enough, we get there. We go into the restaurant, and one of the guys looks like he definitely was a guy who liked to play. He was a knock-around guy. So he said, you seen Pete around? And the guy goes, yeah, he comes here every Monday and with his girl. I said, she'll probably be here late, maybe running a little late. So we go outside. We're looking at the houseware section and waiting for this guy. And sure enough, Petey Chops walks in with the 2 women. He sees us. Greg DePalma says to him, dismiss the lady. Ladies, go shop, So he says, Pete, he goes, where the hell you been? He goes, oh, I'm being watched. Because you're being watched. We're all being watched. So that's the nature of our game. We're being watched too. He says, well, I don't want to go and I don't want to be seen. I got enough problems as it is because you're supposed to report and I want you to be there first thing tomorrow morning. Do you understand? And you better bring an envelope with you. So sure enough, he started mouthing off to Greg, saying things like, F you, I ain't going, what are you crazy? So Robert Vaccaro was getting aggravated because I'm with him. So next thing you know, he picks up this candlestick that's made out of glass. I mean, solid glass, like it literally looked like a dumbbell. And as Greg DePalma is yelling at him, he says to the guy, shut your mouth. He says, you know who you're talking to? He says, show some respect. It was, I'm not going to go. He goes, whackata, hits the guy in the head. You hear like a melon pop. He drops down. There's blood gushing. He's on the floor. And Robert DePalma goes, I ought to hit you again. I grab the thing. I says, Robert, let's get out of here. We got cameras. Now picture this. This is President's Day, 6:30, women with children, all of that, seeing these mob go at it. The guy is down. All of a sudden, he stumbles up. He's like falling, bleeding. And then he goes, what the hell you do that for? Well, what did you do that for? So Robert, as I'm pulling him to go away, grabs a knife. It's a butter knife. He says, I'm going to stab you in the eye with this. And I grabbed it. I says, come on, what are you, crazy? Come on, let's get out of here. So I pushed him away. Petey Vicini walks over like old days. I push him away. I got blood all over my leather jacket. We're going down the step, and as we're going down the stairs, not the cop, security's going up. So Greg De Palma goes, hey, some guy just fell down the stairs up there. He's all banged up. So we get in the car, and we leave. So now comes the problem where Greg says to him, Greg goes, why did you put your hands on him? You can't put your hands on one of us. He's a friend of ours. You can't do that. So he goes, well, he deserved it. He's out of line. He says, don't worry, I got to go to the boss with this. I got to tell him he was out of line and that he provoked us. But he's got to come through me before he files a complaint. You know, it's like a business the way they run. Mm-hmm. And he filed a complaint. So anyway, so next day, I go back home and I'm going, oh my God, this is amazing. I said, I can't believe this guy almost killed the guy. I mean, he probably would have killed him. So next day I show up bright and early at the nursing home where his son, who was a made guy, who also, his name was Craig De Palma, who was also a made guy, but he was in a vegetative coma because he was cooperating. So anyway, sure enough, who do we see? Robert jumps in the car with me. We're parked outside, and I said, Robert, how you doing? How you feeling? You all right? He goes, yeah, that son of a bitch is up there. He goes, don't worry about it. So anyway, the guy walks down with Greg. He's got like gauze all over his head. He looked like Yankee Doodle Dandy walking down the hall, and Greg De Palma comes over. He takes off. He goes, that guy's running scared, but I got the envelope. Said, I told that son of a bitch to pay me. Now, he got a thick envelope, right? Do you think he would give Robert some money? You think he'd give me some money? No, because it's all about money for them. So that Petey Vicini, oh, by the way, the Bureau had no knowledge of who he was as a made guy. So part of our undercover case, we were able to identify a lot of made guys that the Bureau did not have on their chart. So Peter Vicini was one of them. The guy was a millionaire, loan sharker, bookmaker from the Bronx. Been doing it for years. So anyway, so at the end, we didn't lock up Peter Vicini because he was a victim, if anything, but it elevated our case to violence involved in a RICO, which always helps.
Right. So Greg, the father, he said that Petey would have to basically lodge the complaint of his assault by Robert to him before it could make it to the boss. Who was the boss at the time?
The boss was Arnold Scutieri. Arnold was a friend of John Gotti, a very close friend of John Gotti. He went by the nickname Zeke. And Arnold was a very cautious guy, stayed away, didn't want to meet people, but he had to go through Greg because that's the way Arnold John was a celebrity gangster. Arnold was more like old school. He insisted on protocol, like you can't go see me, you got to go through your layers. And Greg was the layer. But Greg said Vicini never filed a complaint. All he wanted to know was who hit him and who was this big guy with him, and wanted to know if I was straightened out. So because you're not supposed to put hands on. In that world, you don't put your hands on anybody who's made, unless of course you do it on the sneak. A lot of things happen on the sneak. You could kill somebody on the sneak and say, I have no idea who did it, or you can go the right way and ask permission to whack it.
Right. And Craig De Palma, which was Greg's son, he'd gotten busted, right? And initially he'd agreed to cooperate with the government, and then his father basically sent him an admonishment like, this is not what we do, so on and so forth. And so then Craig, in I guess shame, attempted to kill himself, but he only ended up putting himself in a permanent vegetative state. Is that why they were up in the rest house, the rest home?
True.
And so Greg De Palma turned his son's hospice situation into a place where he could do meetings because he didn't think that the government would bug the room of his vegetated his son who was in a coma. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Was he right in that bet?
Yeah, it was so freaky because at first I thought it was the Italian flu, where a lot of these guys who go to court are drooling in wheelchairs and, they come in with feeble, like I'm going to die.
Gigante fever.
Yeah, exactly. And then sure enough, and Craig De Palma, the son, was proposed for membership by John Gotti Sr. And once he became a made man, he was in John Gotti Jr.'s crew. So what happened is I thought he was making it up for sure when I saw him. Let me tell you something, my heart broke. I mean, this guy was really, he had a private room. He had pictures of all the memorabilia that he liked in sports. Craig would have meetings there and outside. He would talk to him. He even got some kind of witchcraft Santeria guy to come in. He would do everything. He really believed he was communicating. And he would say, look, Jackie boy, he's talking. And I said, he understands what I'm saying. Watch. I'll ask him. He'll blink his eye. And, he was blinking out of,
reflex.
Exactly. But he believed he was going back. And then the wife was totally yelling at Greg, saying, this is your fault. You put him in the life, Right. And how could you? And they just went at it like cats and dogs. But yeah, so Craig, it was a shame. But then Greg tried to change it. He kept saying, that's a lie that the FBI perpetrated. He didn't cooperate. He did. He testified in grand jury. He didn't do it. That's all a lie. Because, if your son is a rat and you're a made guy, that doesn't look too good for you in that
That's
world.
a problem. Yeah.
So
that's a problem.
he tried to clean it up. I think a lot of people let him, but they all knew deep down inside because the papers were out. I mean, right. Mikey Scars de Leonardo, who, by the way, has a podcast. Craig, I know him. He's an excellent guy, very nice person, and did a lot.
Yeah, I like his podcast.
Yeah, he had it. I mean, he was part of the case with Craig De Palma, and they had the manuscript of that. So
it's not even a question. Yeah, he did it.
He did it, exactly.
I mean, he must have. I mean, he tried to kill himself, right? So
he's supposed to.
That wasn't on a. No, I didn't do it. I'm so sad. You think I did? I'm gonna kill myself. That's exactly. I did it.
Yeah, and he blamed the FBI for going in there at night and hanging him. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, I know the FBI is always on, always getting beat up, but Jesus, that's like going way too far. I mean, but those are stories that he used to maintain his power base. Because Greg De Palma, as you know, was a celebrity. I mean, he was a celebrity. Yeah. He was so recognized. We go out to dinner, and married couple like our parents will walk by, and he says, Greg, can you open the Westchester Premier Theater? I had so much fun there seeing Frank Sinatra, Aretha Franklin, Diana, you name it, Dionne Warwick. The who's who in entertainment played at the Westchester Premier Theater that Greg De Palma owned, which was in essence the mob owned. And Greg was very smart. When we talked about money kicked up, he told me, because he tried to, I guess, maybe use psychology for me to give him more money. He says, Jackie boy, always give more money to the bosses, because in case you step on your crank, they're going to help you out. They're going to know you're an earner. Don't hold back. Give them 20, 30%. They're going to be happy, and they're going to know you. They're going to take care of you. And that was his philosophy. But did you get a chance to go to the Westchester Premier Theater? I did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. They had Elvis there, Dean Martin, and Greg De Palma was one of the owners. And they shot that place down like the movie Goodfellas, where they said they had the bar, they went in and destroyed it and busted it all up. That's what he did too. A profitable place like that, of the who's who going to this show, Liza Minnelli and Greg De Palma just blows it out of the water.
Yeah,
just got greedy.
He was a wild, really wild dude, man. which brings me to this question. Well, first of all, let me tell you, I love this line. Eating, meetings, and planning of beatings. That was the course, basically the course of your daily when you were moving around with the Gambino guys. That's funny as hell. And of course, I get it, right? It is just funny to see it put into terms
it's so
like
funny
that.
because you're right. I mean, you eat with the mob more than you do on a cruise ship. We would go first thing in the morning at a diner, sausage, eggs, this and that. From there, you go to the home. We went to the home. Somebody would bring pastry and all that. And of course, later comes lunch. Then you go to lunch. It's a marathon lunch. You eat everything. Then you go back to the strip club where I was one of the owners. I'm at the strip club. Somebody's also bringing Danish food, cake, whatever it may be. And then you go to dinner. And then at night, at 2 a.m, when things are closed, you go to City Island, and there you have more food. So, I blew up like a tick around the mob. I was just eating like I was going to the chair. And the more you ate, the more they loved it. It goes, Jackie boy, mud on, look at you. What are you doing? You're going to kill yourself. So, and the food was great. There was like best food restaurants.
So this was the crazy shit now. You're Cuban born, and you were able to convince Italian mobsters, Sicilians, that you were Italian.
I don't even know how that went through.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. I'm Cuban, made in Havana, and when we start talking about it, the case agent who's Italian from Italy, Nat Parisi, great guy, says, you could do it. So I said, what do you mean I could do it? He says, yeah, you could do it. You could pass for a little Sicilian and all, but tell them that maybe we'll figure out that if they ask too many questions, you could say your mom was Cuban. But they never asked any questions. It was like I was in shock. They believe it. In fact, they would say,
but I found these results on search.
Is that me? No, anyway. So it was kind of like, well, that was a strange voice. I don't know where that came from.
You're not wired, are you?
Yeah, I'm actually am. Look, I'm wired now. I covered my tracks because that was an interesting, let me just go off track if you don't mind. When you work other cases, the dope cases and all that, there's not a need for you to explain who you are. Because somebody comes to you, when that meeting is arranged, it's pretty much a done deal. So they're not going to ask you where you're from, where you live, who you know, whatever. It's more like you're talking, you're selling yourself, which is what an undercover does. He's either an actor or a salesman. He's selling himself. So then what happens is when you're dealing with the Spanish, I actually believe in their heart that I was a total Italian. And I found it hard, but I went through this, the Italian agent put me what he called the mob school, where I had to learn how I grew up in that culture and how even though I'm 3 generations removed, I still knew the food. Like, for instance, I can't say like mozzarella. It's mozzarella. I had to sound like I've eaten it. It's also like gabagool, like gabagool. Super sad. I had to know what's what. So when I sound it, I don't sound like, yeah, you have any braccioli? It's brojol. And the guy's going to look at me like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Off with his head.
Yeah. So I had to learn, so he taught me all those things. And then I took it a step further. I was working a case down in Florida, and I said, you know what? I said, these guys check. I'm going to have a Social Security. I got a driver's license. I'm going to do this and that. He says, what if I'm down in Florida? And one of the guys out of the Clear Blue says, Jackie boy, you know what? You're from Florida. I know your parents have passed. Let's pay our respect. Let's go to the gravesite. I mean, what would you do? I went and found a Mr. and Mrs. Falcone. And that would have been my mom and dad. And I found them at the same place that Jackie Gleason is buried. And that's a Mr. and Mrs. Falcone. And I said to myself, well, the only fear now I have, if the guy wants to do that, I get my flowers. But if there's a Mr. and Mrs. Falcone family paying their respect at the same time as me, I'm going to have a problem. But you know what? I was prepared because like I said, in the other places, nobody cared, but there's accountability in the mob. You know, my role was third generation guy who teamed up with this source. We met. He knew me as a big gambler. He knew me as a guy who was dealing in dope. This guy had a lot of money. He was a fun guy to be around with, and he invested in this guy's strip club. So I had a strip club that I was the owner in with him. And when Greg De Palma got out of jail, boom, he went right back to the strip club that was one time on record with his son. And there is where I got into the role. But what the important thing was, at the beginning, this case was not targeting the mob. It targeted the Albanians. The Albanians were shaking down every place in New York. The Lucchese's were about to whack them. Gambinos were about to whack them. They started hitting this club up in the Bronx, a strip club, and they went in and they said, hey, listen, we want some protection money. You pay us about $1,000 a week. We'll make sure everything's all right. So the owner goes, the hell with you, giving you $1,000. He said, you're not going to give us $1,000? That's fine. Next week, they come back again. Where's the $1,000? He says, you ain't getting $1,000. I said, I got my own protection. He says, oh, really? Okay. Following week, they come back, 2 Albanians. Then 3 come in. Then 4 come in. Now you got a packed house full of Albanians. And boom, it begins. Punching guests, breaking glasses in the bar. Gunshot goes off. They say, let's run. The cops are coming. So everybody scatters, right? Now, what happened was the guy, and this is where I came in, right at that spot. They came in and said, you got to pay us. The next day, Louis Filippelli, a guy who was also not in the chart in the FBI that we identified, his nickname was Bo, because all he said was Bo to everybody. Hey, Bo, how you doing, Bo? So Bo walks in and he says, I heard you had a problem. I says, we can make your problem go away, but you got to pay us $1,000. So you see how the extortion works? You create a situation and then you offer a solution. So now, instead of paying the Albanians...
Like how the government works.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So then you got to pay $1,000 to the mob guy. So I paid him $1,000 to keep the Albanians out, and they never came back. So they were working hands in hand. The Albanian was a very violent group. They were known as the corporation, and they would have no fear, badass, all of them, and they caused the problem to the Gambinos. And finally, at the end, the Lucchese's were going to whack them, but they got arrested on some other case in Westchester County.
Yeah, the Albanians were some crazy motherfuckers, man.
Oh,
when they beef with one another, it's just the craziest fucking thing.
They have no fear because they've been through shit and back, hell and back.
Yeah, they're really crazy. Good. I mean, when they're on your side, though, there's some damn loyal people, though.
They are. They really are, but they're ruthless and fearless.
Yes, indeed.
And and it was tough. I'm sorry, it was even tougher one time. They were getting so cocky that there was an arrangement made with Arnold Squitieri, the boss, got 20 made guys, met in New Jersey at a gas station with Alex Rudash, who was the leader of the corporation, and said, what you took is yours, but you ain't taking no more. This is it. This is what you got. Never want to see you guys again or bothering with any of my places. So Rudash, they had a guy with a shotgun aimed at the gas tanks, ready to blow up everything. But the Albanians backed down, and sure enough, they never bothered. They went and bothered the Lucchese, the Gambinos. But yeah, that was according to Greg De Palma, that was when the shit was hitting the fan. You know, they had 20 guys all strapped, ready to go. And the Albanians ate it. They said, that's it.
That's crazy. All this shit going in the background, civilians don't got a damn clue.
Can you imagine that you're with your family loading up with gas and you got these crazy ass Colombians and Albanians and mobsters?
I had a flashback and had to laugh when you mentioned the Italian tuxedos, and then started naming the feline Sergio Ticini warm-up suits and velour and silk and nylon. You wrote, Usually worn over a wife-beater T-shirt showing off a thick, solid gold necklace and cross. Such an outfit would be completed with the new top-of-the-line sneakers. And also in that section, you said they had to have the right shoes, too. Ferragamos, Bally's, or Gucci's. They had a particular fondness for alligator shoes, and it was a sign of status to own them in brown, black, or even blue. Were you aware of the commonalities and attitudes towards fashion and jewelry between African-American drug dealers and Italian drug dealers during that period?
You know what? There is a common element there.
Yeah, that was all our same shit. I grew up. That's how I dressed growing up. All that shit you name.
Yeah, it's funny because we wore guayaberas. We're more casual, the Cubans, But then with them you're right, they went out. They had the nylon socks. They had the alligator shoes and blue. I mean, who would think of blue? Where you get the blue shoes from, right? They looked good. Oh, we had to get our nails done, manicure and pedicure. I said to myself, man, I am 50 some odd years old at the time. I never had a manicure. I said, what am I missing here? Now my wife goes, I go, what a life you have. Manicure and pedicure, they knew how to live. And then, of course, the cars were clean, spotless. The funny story with the Ticcinis was that they hit a truck and they got all these Ticcinis, right? So I had them in my size, which was 6XL, So I got my Ticcini, going to meet them. I got my jewelry, my cross. Got my diamond ring, my Rolex. I'm ready. Get out of my car. That time I was driving a Hummer H2,
Mm-hmm.
I was bad when I was out there. So pull up my Hummer H2, get out. I see all these old guys, all wearing Ticcinis. We're sitting around the diner looking like a bunch of old soccer players, And none of us, I had this Ticcini. Nobody asked me if I wanted to work out. Not a person you figure, let's go to the gym, pump some iron. Let's do some walking, lose some of that weight. No one ever asked me that. But everybody wore their Ticcini and their wife beater shirts on.
Yeah, I remember the days, man. Those, oh my. And going to see the Italian kids, it was John and them, Junior and all of them with those damn cigarette boats out there, Long Island.
Oh wow, yeah.
Those fast ass racing boats, those motorboats they used to have out there.
Yeah.